Hi, I'm Wayne Bruce, and this is the Meaning Mission, where my mission is to help you experience the world as part of Jesus' ongoing story. In order to do that, we're going to practice a Psalm 1 way of life where we meditate on Scripture each day. Thankfully, YouVersion helps us out with this by giving us a verse of the day. Today, March 3rd, 2025, it is Matthew 7, verses 13 and 14, where Jesus says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it. For the gate is narrow and the way is constricted that leads to life, and there are few who find it." So let's go ahead and pull this up in the Step Bible as always. And we're going to notice here in the context, of course, this is at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is wrapping things up. This is just after saying, treat people as you want them to treat you, and just before he talks about a tree and its fruit and the two foundations based on whether or not you listen to his words. And I want to again give us a little bit more context. Towards the start of the Sermon on the Mount, if we were to scroll back up to Matthew chapter 5, verse 20, uh, Jesus says, "For I say to you that unless your righteousness far surpasses that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven." Right? And so then he goes on and describes what that righteousness looks like. And one of the things we can think about with this verse here, with these verses, I should say, is the idea of a constant narrowing, right? So when you are trying to follow God, it's going to be very normal that you can look back after a few years if you've been seriously trying to follow God and to listen to him, that there are things that are not acceptable that you're not finding acceptable in your life and in yourself that you used to. And it's sort of this idea that C.S. Lewis talked about in Mere Christianity. He actually quoted George MacDonald in saying that God is easy to please but hard to satisfy. And he talks about an example of a father, watching a son learn to walk. In the first steps, he's always proud of, but by the time he's a man, he expects him to have a good manly stride. And that is, I think, part of what is going on here. Something we can definitely meditate on. That you know our way is going to continually get more narrow. But there's something else that I think is going on that we want to spend some time with. So, for one thing, is this idea of the gate. Obviously, this is going to be associated with cities. And throughout scripture, when we see gate, it is usually in the context of a city or cities. However, is also highly related conceptually to the idea of the door, which is a very important biblical theme, and it's all about making a choice, right? This is where someone often is sitting, whether or standing, whether it's at a door or at a gate, when they need to make a decision, especially when they need to make a decision as regards their relationship with God. So when we think about that, and then we think that, the way is constricted that leads to life, and there are few who find it. I think this word constricted is very interesting, and I have no idea how to say this word, nor why Step Bible all of a sudden is not saving my dark mode preference. And we'll figure that out right quick. We'll just hit disable and then enable again, and now it's working. So quick tutorial there. But this word I can't pronounce. I'm not really going to try. It looks like Bilbo, but I guess I will try Thilbo, something like that. I have no idea. I'm an American uh, who does not know Greek. For okay, we've read this verse, right? So this right here is constricted. But if we read a few more places where this word appears, we can see that, it's talking about being pressed in on. Of course, if you highlight over it, it gives you these additional, definitions: to be pressed upon, to be narrow, to be troubled, persecuted. Uh, and we'll see how that's used. And it's used a lot of times speaking about the persecution, right? In Second Corinthians, right? It talks about being afflicted. It's the same word, but it's translated to talk about afflictions. There are several times, three times in Second Corinthians, First and Second Thessalonians, talking about affliction. So we can expect not only for, you know, as far as our window of what's acceptable to get more narrow, um, but just the constriction of life itself, right? Whether that may be a job or family relationships or friendships that maybe get harder as you're trying to more seriously follow God. That is something we can expect. And it's very uncomfortable at times, but it as much as it may be a hard pill to swallow, I think it is very important that we understand that this is the way of life. Is the way of life is the way that gets harder as we go sometimes. That there are going to be people who are pressing around us who make it more hard, who want us to not keep following this way, right? And, I don't know what specific examples you may have in your life, but hopefully that will be at least some kind of encouragement, just to know that this is the way of life, is the way that gets more constricted, that gets more difficult to perhaps stay on because it's so enticing to go off into the broad path, but that is the way to destruction. So, this has been just a short meditation. Hopefully, this will be the catalyst to you taking a bit longer to meditate, look at the scripture, for yourself for a little while this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, or whenever you may be watching this. So, thank you so much again for visiting the channel. Please let me know what you think. Did I take scripture out of context? Did I use it well? Do you have any additional thoughts? Please let me know what you think. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.